Respected friends and elders, in just a few brief moments, I want to mention something of enormous importance. How can a person lead you astray, misguide you, drag you out of the fold of Islam through verses of the Quran? Is this possible? How can you be led astray through the ahadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? This is known as ilhad. Ilhad is when you misrepresent the meanings of the Quran and Sunnah. You present a hadith of the Quran and you say it means one thing, whereas in reality it means something else. You present a hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and you say it has one particular meaning, whereas it has a different meaning. Such people ignore the context. They say things which are contradictory, because you see, one of the miracles of the Quran is لَوْ كَانَ مِنْ عِنْدِ غَيْرِ اللَّهِ لَوَجَدُوا فِيهِ اخْتِلَافًا كَثِيرًا. If the Quran had been from anyone besides Allah, they would find a lot of variation in it. It would be full of contradictions. But the Quran, يُفَسِّرُ بَعْضُهُ بَعْضًا. If you take one ayat, you will find clues to its meanings in other ayat. And so if anyone tries to move away from the correct meaning, the Quran itself will overlook and point out their mistake and their error and their folly. Similarly, the ahadith of the Prophet ﷺ and the science of hadith is a deep science. In fact, it's a combination of dozens of sciences. And I'm not exaggerating. The muhaddithin have mentioned over 70 branches of hadith knowledge. And so, to pick up a translation is never sufficient. The correct interpretation of a hadith is based on so many different factors, which include context, which include the particular circumstances to which the hadith relates, and to the era and time in which it was spoken by the Prophet ﷺ, or it's narrated about the Prophet ﷺ as well. There's so much to be considered here. And so, what people do, they present a hadith out of context. And of this, and in the time that we have, let me just conclude with the crux of what I'm presenting to you this minute. One such group is a group that claims that there is a prophet who came after Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, a subcontinental Indian prophet, Ghulam Ahmad Qadiani, who initially claimed to be a reviver, a mujaddid. Then he claimed to be the Mahdi. A lot of people want to become the Mahdi. Subhanallah, you see so many people who have this sudden mental episode of losing their rational sense and suddenly appearing as Mahdi in a crowd like this one. None of the signs is there. You don't appoint yourself as the Mahdi. He claimed to be a Nabi. He claimed to be the Masih. He invented the term Masih Maw'ud for himself. And he denied that Isa alayhi salam would descend before Qiyamah and that he was raised alive, as is established by the Quran and Sunnah, and as is the consensus of the Ummah. And he claimed to be a prophet of his own accord. And then he accused those who didn't believe in him of being astray. Subhanallah. Now you would think, why would people believe such a person? They do. In our midst, they do. In the 21st century. Arabs and non-Arabs. Even as recently as yesterday, I was made aware of a movement in Morocco. In Morocco, and subhanallah, just a few years ago, we learned of literature being distributed discreetly in the Haram, in Mecca. So let us not assume that we are immune to these fitnas. We ought to know our beliefs, and we ought to know how to explain them to other people as well. So the way that they deceive you, and this is the key point for today's majlis, today's gathering, is through ilhad, misrepresentation of the Quran and Sunnah. Inshallah, we have an important conference on this subject on Monday, as we do annually on the 1st of January from Maghrib till Isha. The majority of the speeches are in English, the short 10-minute presentations. There's a few in Urdu, There is representation from the entire community in Glasgow, from over a dozen masajid, from each and every one of our masajid, our denominations in Glasgow, to demonstrate that this is a consensus of the ummah. I urge you and encourage you and invite you to participate in this gathering. Come yourselves and come with your families and friends so that we can all understand this important masala. It's our communal responsibility. Come from the beginning, sit from the beginning to the end and join us on this blessed journey. May Allah grant us tawfiq. And let us not forget, for a minute, our brothers and sisters in Gaza who continue to be the victims of the most enormous oppression and campaign of genocide that we have witnessed in our lifetimes. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala assist them and create ease for them. Wa sallallahu ala nabiyyil kareem wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi.